So picture this. I'm sitting at my desk one day and my phone rings and she says, "Are you free next week to go away for 72 hours?" She said, "I can't tell you where you're going to go for security reasons." So all I knew is I had to go to a private airport to get a private jet somewhere, and I didn't know where to, or who with, what for.
This isn't the opening of a spy thriller, no. Believe it or not, it's the life of an orchestra conductor. Well, at least it is for this orchestra conductor.
And then I walk into the compound, and in walks this billionaire, and we have a special guest, which will be Andrea Bocelli. He will just arrive by helicopter in a few hours' time.
A secret location, a private jet, a billionaire's birthday, a famous opera singer, and yet somehow this story gets even stranger.
This is just the most bizarre story of my life.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of No Ordinary Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Chris Barron, and each week I sit down with a guest whose job is far from ordinary. We're going to explore how they got there, what it's really like behind the scenes, and then I'll ask them to relive the single most unforgettable story of their career. Now, before we dive in, just a very quick announcement. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you for all of the amazing feedback which you've been sending to hello@noordinarymonday.com and also on our socials. I've had some lovely messages about last week's episode in particular with Brad Beeler and his career as a Secret Service agent. People really loved his insights into how we can be better communicators. So I hope you had a chance to check that one out. But as always, stick around at the end of this episode so you can get a teaser for what's going to come up in next week's episode. Right. Today I'm speaking with Robert Emery, an orchestra conductor, former child prodigy on the piano, and a man on a crusade to shake classical music loose from its stiff reputation, making it vibrant, welcoming, and genuinely entertaining for everyone. He's someone who can shift effortlessly from performing classics like Beethoven to then walking on stage as Darth Vader to conduct some John Williams. And yet, for all of the artistry and discipline that his career demands, it has also delivered some of the most surreal moments you could imagine, including the vodka-fueled secret location story you heard in the cold open, complete with sinking stages, questionable local delicacies, and a world-famous tenor that arrived by helicopter. But beyond the madness and the mishaps, Robert has an extraordinary insight into the raw emotional power of music, how it can lift audiences to their feet or reduce entire concert halls to tears. You're listening to No Ordinary Monday. Let's get into the show. Robert, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today, man?
Very good, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. An absolute pleasure to speak to someone who I think kind of has a job in the similar band as mine, where people don't go, "Oh, I could do that job." It's one of those jobs that you just go, I know people do that, but when you're at school, it's kind of hard to imagine. Documentary filmmaking was never on the radar for me, but it's really interesting to and that's exactly the reason I love this podcast, is I get to speak to folks that have these incredible jobs, and yeah, it's just do you feel the same? It's one of those pinch me moments when you're getting up on stage.
Yeah, well, I guess so, but the strange thing about me is it's all I've ever done. It's all I've ever known. So, I started playing music when I was 7 years old. And by about the age of 10, I knew that's what I wanted to do as a job. And so at the age of 12, I started earning money from playing music and
Wow.
touring and performing.
Yeah.
So it's all I've ever done. It's all I've ever known. So for me, it's not an unusual thing. It's not strange. The only thing as I get older, I realize I'm really lucky to be able to make money out of essentially my hobby and the love of my life, excluding my dear darling wife and my wonderfully calm children, of course. But also it comes with crazy stories and crazy
Yes.
things happen to me and stuff that people would go, really? Did that actually happen? And that is part of leading a really quite an odd life as to what I lead. So, but it does make it a lot of fun.
We're gonna be jumping into all those stories, and I really can't wait. I wanted to start just on somewhere. looking into before, like preparing for this interview and stuff, like your social media is packed. It's amazing. Like you've got so much stuff on Instagram and YouTube. And as someone, I'm kind of like moving into this podcasting space, like having to be a little bit more like out there and stuff. And I know it's one of those things that it's like hard work sometimes, but you seem to do it so effortlessly. And I wondered, like, is it hard work for you, or is it like a joy? And is it, I guess, the reason for it, is it more just to share
Do you want the honest answer?
Okay, go for it.
The honest answer is I hate social media. I really, I really detest it. It's people have no idea how much effort and time. It's not complicated to do, but how much effort and time you have to put into to do all these social media posts and these influencers. You see them and you think, oh God, they've got the easiest job in the world, and to some extent they do. It's not a complicated job in the slightest, but it does take a huge amount of effort and a huge amount of time. And if I could get away with not doing it, I would absolutely love to do that. I don't use social media at all on a personal level. I never go onto it and think, oh, I wonder what my friends are making for their dinner tonight. I'm going to go and look on Facebook. I think it's a horrible, horrible invention. And if it disappeared overnight, I think the world would be a better place for it. But it won't, and therefore I have to be on it. So I have to make the best of what I can do, I guess.
I'm right with you. It's one of those. It's the tool that helps you break through the noise, sadly, these days. But I do have to say that you do it with an effortless sort of demeanor, and you look like it's not hard at all. So congrats on that.
Thank you. I guess that's the worst compliment you're going to give me today. But I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'm an artiste. I'm a sucker for compliments. So
there you go.
Bring it on.
Well, I want to start just at the very top level. I guess it's even a question I probably don't know the full answer to, and maybe a lot of people listening to this might not know the full answer to. But kind of just walk us through like what a conductor is. How does it work? Why are you there? I guess in some ways, in preparing for this, I'm thinking like, is a conductor maybe like, in a way like a movie director would be like, they'd have a script and all the actors have a script and they know the lines, but the director is the one that helps them to fill in the gaps or interpret it. Like, just walk us through the job a little bit.
That's a really great analogy, actually, and nobody's ever said that to me before. And that's superb. It really is as simple as that. You can have 100 actors on set and they all have the same script. They all know supposedly what they're supposed to be doing, but unless there's one person who is fundamentally responsible for how it looks, how it sounds, how it feels. Is it manic? Is it calm? Is it rushed? Is it passionate? Is it quiet? Is it loud? Is it scary? Is it romantic? And all those things apply to film, but they also apply to music, because you can play a piece of music in an infinite number of different ways. And essentially that music on the page is just a set of instructions of what note to play, when, and roughly how. But ultimately it's left down to the players themselves to create that performance. And for stuff that is uber famous, the musicians fundamentally know how to do it already. And you, as a conductor, you don't have the hardest job in the world to do. So I don't know, if you're playing something like the theme from Star Wars by John Williams, everybody knows how that's supposed to sound. Any decent musician will have played it hundreds of times and will also know how it's supposed to sound. And so predominantly you're there as a person just to tie everybody together, because the musicians tend to do 99% of the work, and you're there just to direct them to make sure that the whole orchestra are moving as one. When you're rehearsing a new piece or a piece that the musicians don't know, that's where the conductor really starts to become something more than just somebody who is keeping time for the players, because that's where the conductor can really carve how that music sounds. So John Williams, the composer, he himself conducted the sessions at the at Abbey Road Studios with the London Symphony Orchestra for Star Wars.
Wow.
And it was him on that day in 1976, I think it was, where he chose how the theme from Star Wars should sound. And he crafted that. He would say, you know, the trombones, you're not playing that tune loud enough. It needs to be louder, it needs to be more epic, or it needs to be harder sounding. Or violins, you're trying to take the center stage here and you're not important, back off, we don't need to hear you yet. Whatever it might be, he was the person, as the conductor and also the composer, to carve that sound, and then that sound is now imprinted in our minds forevermore. And so as a conductor, when it's a new piece of music, your job becomes infinitely harder and more interesting, because you get to carve that sound world. But fundamentally, it's like I wave a stick around for a living. It's a bit of a strange thing to do, waving a piece of wood, but that's just a bit of a tool. Some conductors don't use a baton, some do. I do. That there is no right or wrong. It's just whatever is personal preference. And fundamentally, we're there to keep time for everybody, to tell everybody when to start playing, when to stop playing, how fast to play. But that is just the fundamental foundation. On top of that, then, is you directing the sound to create the emotion of what you want and what you think the audience is going to respond to. And that's really the fundamental job of a conductor.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I love is, speaking about batons, what I love on your social media is that, you know, you expect conductors to be, you know, in the penguin suit or well-dressed and whatnot. And you are for a lot of the time. But that baton might sometimes be swapped out for a lightsaber, or it might be swapped out. You might walk out in a Darth Vader costume. You might walk out as a pirate. I mean, just tell me a little bit about, where did that come from, and why did you sort of start this sort of performative side of things?
Yeah. So, look, fundamentally at heart, I'm a classical musician. I went to the Royal College of Music to study classical piano, actually. And when I was younger, I wanted to be a concert pianist. I wanted to tour the world playing Beethoven or Rachmaninoff or Bach, and actually not so much Bach because I still don't understand it, but that's by the by. And I trained as that classical musician, and we all know that classical music is scary, and we know that it's elitist, and we know that it's very formal, and we know that it's complicated. Well, this is the thing. It's not scary. It doesn't have to be elitist. It definitely doesn't have to be formal, and it doesn't necessarily need to be complicated. And I'm a passionate believer in trying to, in my own way, tell the world that classical music has been around for hundreds of years. It is wonderful. All the popular commercial music that you know and love today is rooted in classical music, without any exception. And without the Bachs, the Beethoven, the Mozart, the Rachmaninoff, all of those people, without their music, you would not have the Beatles or Ed Sheeran or Taylor Swift or Foo Fighters. It just is a fact. It's an undeniable fact that that is the case. And I'm really frustrated with the industry, with the classical music industry, that they don't do more to try and make classical music and orchestral music more accessible and more understandable and less scary. And so one of the things that I said I would do since I was really, 10, 11 years old, is try and find my own way to make it more accessible and more interesting. So when I was, 12 or 13, I was doing a concert, and I like speaking to an audience. I'm not one of these conductors who will walk on stage, conduct the piece of music and disappear off. I like talking to an audience. I like trying to break down the barrier that is between the stage and the audience. And I like talking to them about the music, about the composer, about interesting reasons why they composed the music. And so at that point, I decided I would do unusual things on stage to try and make classical music and music in general with an orchestra more accessible. And so if that means when I'm presenting a concert of John Williams and Hans Zimmer music, if that means I go on stage dressed as Darth Vader or Jack Sparrow, or I conduct with a lightsaber, if that means that one person in the audience is enjoying that music a little bit more and will buy another ticket in the future to go to a concert, it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the thing that's interesting with all this, I love to get into people's origin stories, and you mentioned a little bit at the top there about, you started when you're a child and you kind of knew this was my trajectory, but, just take us through that sort of, that inception point. Like were you pushed, encouraged to do music by your parents from a young age, as a lot of kids are? Did you just take to it? I mean, it sounds like you took to it and then it just snowballed into this incredible thing, but just walk us through sort of your origin story to where you are now.
It started with a show, a BBC television show called Top of the Pops.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember Top of the Pops?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in that age bracket. I don't know if it still exists.
I don't think it does. But that was like back in the day where you had the chart every week, and you wanted to know who was number one in the chart. And this live television show from BBC TV Centre in London went across the nation, and everybody would sit there wondering who was going to be the number one this week. And it was such a big deal. And I used to listen and watch that with my family. And when there was a song that I liked that hit number one, I would then go to the family piano. That was my grandmother's piano, and that was in our house. And I would go and somehow I would play the piece of music that I'd heard on the TV. Now, I hadn't had any training, no lessons. I just knew how to do that somehow.
How old were you?
7.
Okay.
And at that point, my parents said, okay, we need to give him piano lessons. And then really quickly, by the age of 10, I'd done grade 8, which is the top grade that you can do from an examination point of view before you go on to things like diplomas. And so I just I raced through it. In terms of being pushy as a parent, I hated practice. I still do. The irony about me as a musician is I really dislike playing the piano, which is a very strange thing to say considering I'm a pianist and a conductor. Yeah. But I really disliked practice. I love performing, but the getting to the bit where I can play well enough to practice, I really disliked. So my parents had to push me very hard, and I didn't like that. But I was also lazy, inherently lazy. And one of the reasons is because I could kind of just do it at the start, so I didn't need to practice that much. And that gave me a slight cocky, arrogant, little nasty boy syndrome, which I look back on and I go, God, you're a horrible little what's it. And I see it in my son now, Teddy, who is 10. It's so difficult. I had a fantastic argument with him this morning because he was trying to learn his D minor scale on the violin, and he played it once and he played it just about okay-ish, and then he was like, job done. I was like, no, son, job is not done. You have to play it 5 times in a row perfect. Then you know you can play it. Then job is done. He's like, oh, but do I have to? I said, yes, you do. He said, yeah, but I played it okay. Yes, yeah, but that was a fluke, Teddy. If you play it to me again 5 times in a row, perfect, then it's no longer a fluke. That is life. It doesn't matter if you're applying that to violin or learning your French for your examination or you're learning computer coding. It's the same principle in life that you have to just accept. That's how you learn things. And we have this spectacular argument. Which I think I probably, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I won that, but I don't think it changed his mind in the slightest.
Do you ever win an argument with a 10-year-old? I'm not sure.
Do you ever win an argument anyway? I don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't very often.
I do feel sorry for Teddy having a professional orchestra conductor as a father teaching him music and going, I think, from my professional opinion, that wasn't good, or
Yes.
or that was good.
Yeah.
There was a story, just going back to you being a sort of tenacious kid in this sort of environment. There's a story that I told on something else with, I think you were 16, and that's sort of first time that you had gone and you're in the Birmingham. You went to the Birmingham Orchestra to try and get them to play, and you wanted to conduct. Was this the first time you'd conducted something, or a paid gig,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever?
yeah. I got a place at the Royal College of Music in London, and my parents, who I don't come from a wealthy family, my parents said, "That's great, but you're gonna have to find a way to fund that yourself. You're gonna probably need 15, 20 grand a year to live and survive in London and pay your tuition fees. 4-year course, you need to earn, roughly 80,000 over the next 4 years." And I just thought, well, I don't want to go and work in a bar or something. Nothing wrong with that, but I want to earn money out of my hobby, out of my job. So I thought the easiest way of, quite frankly, being a cheeky little shit is asking a symphony orchestra if I can hire them but not pay for their services. And then I decided I didn't want to hire in a conductor because that would cost money, and I should do that myself. So I thought it can't be that hard waving a stick around. So I persuaded the Birmingham Philharmonic to let me use them for a week. And then I persuaded a venue to let me have the venue free of charge for a week. And then I conducted a series of concerts that week, and I earned enough money to get me through my entire college degree from that week's worth of performances. And that was when I was 17. And so, of course, I liked that, and I thought, this is great. I like producing my own work. So I get paid as a performer, and I earn a small fortune, producing these concerts. Well, of course, it doesn't quite work out like that in the real world, because as soon as you start having to pay for your orchestra and pay for your venue and pay for your lighting and everything else, it's very difficult then to make money. But yeah. Fundamentally, that's how I started, and I didn't have any training. I just figured it out, really.
Same as you learning piano, I guess, back in the day, just sort of just throw yourself into it. But I'm surprised that you just called up the orchestra and went, "Hey, I mean, this is not a small amateur orchestra. This is like, the Birmingham Orchestra," and said, "Hey,
Yeah,
do it for free."
but you can. The funny thing about humans is that we are much more pliable, flexible than what we realize. And when you are a child, you have the ability to use your youth, your cheekiness, and adults then look at that and they have a slight smile on their face and they're like, yeah, fine. If you're a 45-year-old man, then
exactly.
I would not be going for this. But you're a young kid. I like your attitude. Let's do it. But the funny thing is, you think as an adult, you lose that ability to be that cheeky chappy when you're older. But it's not the case. You can still achieve all the things that you need to achieve. You just have to have the ultimate confidence to do it.
Yeah, just be charming and be confident, and people kind of go with the flow, don't they? It's interesting. On this show, I always ask guests to come on and share sort of like the most significant experience of their career, one that really stands out above it, and sort of relive that for us. And I can imagine you've got loads, but we chatted before we start recording about the one you got, and I'm so excited to hear the full version of this because it's bonkers.
It is a bit bonkers. So you want to hear it?
Oh, go for it. Give us all the dirty details.
So picture this. I'm sitting at my desk one day and my phone rings, and there's an agent on the other end of the phone, and she says, "Are you free next week to go away for 72 hours?" I said, "Yeah, fine. Where to?" She said, "I can't tell you." I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "I can't tell you where you're going to go for security reasons." I said, "Okay, this sounds very strange. Fine. So in that case, what am I going away for?" "I can't tell you, Robert." "Okay, fine. What am I going to go and perform?" She said, I can't tell you, Robert. I was like, this is very strange. I said, okay, well, what's the money? She went, that's entirely up to you. And as soon as she said
Wow.
that, I thought, well, this is brilliant. I don't care where in the world I have to go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say the most stupendously high figure, which I did do, assuming that she would say that's far too expensive. And she went, the money will be in your account later today.
And then you
it
went, I
was.
should have gone higher.
And there was a large amount of money in my account about 2 hours later.
Wow.
And so I was hooked in. So all I knew is I had to go to a private airport just outside of London to get a private jet somewhere. And I didn't know where to, or who with, what for. But the money was secure in my account. So I thought, well, hey, why not?
Yeah.
And so I got onto this jet and we got up in the air. And eventually I said, look, can somebody please tell me where I'm going? And they said, well, yeah, now that you're in the air, we can't tell you. You're going off to a country. I think I'm not allowed to tell you. I think I should not tell you which country, but it was one of the stands. So if you think of like,
Yep, that region, former Soviet.
one of the stands, it was one of those countries,
Yeah.
and so I landed, and I said, again, what am I here for? And they said, well, we can't tell you that until you're in the compound. I said, what? This is getting stranger and stranger. I said, okay, fine. Can you tell me what am I conducting? And they said, well, you're conducting the National Philharmonic Orchestra of this country, but we can't tell you who the artist is or what it's for until you're in the compound. So I get into this armored plated Mercedes, and I have my my bag with me, my sort of man bag, as it were, and somebody opens the door for me when we get to the other end, and I he looked like a sort of a bellboy type person, but it was a private compound in a very large palace, essentially. And so I give my bag to this person. I was a bit grumpy, I was a bit tired after the travel, and a bit nervous as well, because I thought this is really weird. I don't know where I am or what I'm here for. So, I wasn't in the best of moods. So I kind of shoved it into this person's chest, like, here I go. This is the person who held the door open for me. And then I walk into the compound. And then I get greeted by an assistant of the billionaire who owns this kind of palatial. I would say it's a house, but it's not a house. There's essentially a private street on top of a hill, and there are 6 gigantic palaces on either side of this house, with one gigantic garden that is connected on both sides, and each of the houses are connected underground through tunnels. And I went into one of these houses, and you walk in through the front door. It's got an Olympic-size, gold-plated swimming pool with a balcony around, with slides like a theme park going into this pool. This is just like as you go into one of these properties. It's just like out of this world. I cannot begin to tell you the wealth of this person.
Yeah.
He's in the top 20 richest people in the world, I since found out. But I didn't know who he was at the time. I didn't know why I was there. And this assistant said to me, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Billionaire, who it's his 50th birthday, and this is the reason why you're here, is to conduct the orchestra for an outside party for his birthday. I'd like to introduce you to the billionaire. And in walks this billionaire, holding my bag, because when I got out of the car, I'd shoved it into his chest because I thought he was the bellboy. And he threw it back at me with a twinkle in his eye. And he said, it's been years since I've had to hold anybody's bag, Mr. Emery. Welcome to my house. I was like, oh, wow. I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was you. Nobody told me anything. He's like, no, it's no problem.
Wow. You might have been disappeared. You're very lucky.
Yeah, very lucky. And then he said, I would like to, I've put on a welcome party for you. I said, a welcome party for me? He said, yeah. We've got the national dancers of this country, and they are going to present a performance for you. So I said, oh, that's very kind. Thank you very much. So the national dancers of this country come out, and there's about 40 ladies who are, I guess, between the age of 18 and 30. And they're essentially kind of belly dancers. They're wearing very, very little. And they're all doing this dance on this purpose-built stage in his garden. And after about 10 minutes, he leans over to me, rather disgustingly. He says, tell me which one you want, and she can be yours for your entire stay. And I'm a bit shocked by this. And I said, well, there's...
Wow.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. But do you know what? I'm a happily married man, so... And he looked at me and he went, so? I said, no, thank you, but no thanks.
Yeah.
And I could tell he was slightly offended, but I thought, well, there's nothing much I can do about it. And then I said, I would like to know what I'm conducting. Nobody's told me this yet, and what the rehearsal schedule is like. And he said, well, the party is tonight. The performance is tonight. There are 350 of my closest friends from around the world who are flying in to be here for my 50th birthday, and we're having it here. There's the stage, sir, and it'll be the National Philharmonic of the country who are going to perform, and you're going to host this, and we have a special guest, which will be Andrea Bocelli. I said, so Andrea Bocelli is going to come and sing. He said, yes, he's singing 2 songs, and you'll conduct. So I said, okay, well, I've never worked with Andrea Bocelli before. He's quite a big name.
Yeah,
you know,
I was about to say, for people who don't know him, he's a big dog in opera, right?
Yeah. He's like the biggest dog in the world for sort of classical crossover music. He famously sung a song called "Time to Say Goodbye" with Sarah Brightman. But you know, he's like
a big name.
He's huge. And I said, well, you know, I don't know him. I don't know what he's going to perform. Do you have any information? He said, no, I don't know. He will just arrive by helicopter in a few hours' time. He said, but we've got plenty of time, so don't worry. Let's have a drink. Now, I have a hard rule. I do not drink whilst I work.
Yeah.
He said, let's have vodka. Now, I don't drink vodka anyway. So I said, that's very kind of you, sir, but no, thank you very much. And he looked at me and said, no. He said, let's have a drink of vodka. Okay, fine. So he clicks his fingers and this man comes over with his tray, with these vodka shots. And he says, you should be very grateful. I said, oh, why is that? He said, well, there are only 3 people in the world who have had this vodka. There's me, there's you, and there's my good friend, Vladimir Putin,
Oh my God.
gave me this bottle from his own personal cellar.
Oh
and
my
this is the
God.
only bottle in the world. So you should count yourself lucky. Now, I want to say, just for clarity, this story happened before the war with Ukraine kicked in.
Okay, yeah.
And I am a massive supporter of the Ukrainians. I've just been on tour with them for a month. I just need to make that very crystal clear. So I look back, you know, at this point in time, the idea that Vladimir Putin was going to destroy millions of people's lives hadn't even entered my psyche.
Yeah, for sure.
So I said, okay, well, thank you. I'll just have the one then to try and be kind to this man. It was his birthday. It was the reason why
you can't say no.
No. Yeah. So I had one shot. I did not like it, but I said, well, thank you very much. And he went, you don't have one. You never have one with me. Next. Clicked his fingers. And the man came over and bought me a second. And I just said, look, I can't be drunk to do my job. And it's very kind of you. And then he went, no. You don't understand. We are having this drink. And I had literally no choice in the matter. And I tried in the most diplomatic way possible to say no thank you, and he was just not having it. So I ended up having this second vodka shot. And then after the second vodka, he clicked his fingers and he said, "We never have two. We always have three." And this went on again and again and again. And I honestly, I lost count how many shots I'd had of this vodka. It must have been 7 or 8. I was so off my face. It was just the most surreal thing ever. And I then had to go and start rehearsing with the orchestra before Bocelli came in. And I mean, I was spinning, but I started conducting this music. And then these very sweet men came over to me and said, "Maestro, I'm sorry to stop you. We have to stop the rehearsal." I said, no. I need the rehearsal time. He says, "No, we have to move the piano." I said, "No, I'm fine with the piano where it is. Thank you very much. It's exactly where I would like it." He said, "No, we have to move the piano." I said, "Why do you have to move the piano?" He said, "Well, because the stage is built on top of the swimming pool, and we miscalculated the weight of the piano, and we've noticed that the stage on the side of the piano is slowly sinking into the swimming pool, and we're slightly concerned that we're all going to end up in the swimming pool. So we have to move the piano." And so, I don't know, seven or eight of these men, they pick it up, and they pick up this piano, and they then lift it off the stage and put it on the ground about 10 meters away. And it then goes horrendously out of tune, of course. And I say, "Can we please get a tuner in to tune?" And they look at me and they say, "There is no tuner in this country. We have to fly them in from Russia, and we don't have time for that." So the piano was just, it sounded like a dodgy honky-tonk bar piano. I thought, this is a disaster. I'm drunk. I've got a piano which sounds like a honky-tonk piano. I've got Andrea Bocelli coming in, and I've got one of the world's richest people to perform to in a several hours' time. This can't get any worse. I need some food. So I went to the guy who was like an assistant for me, and I said, "Is there any chance that I could get some food?" And they said, "Yeah, we'll give you the best food from our country. This is a delicacy. You will love this." I said, "Oh, perfect. I just need something to soak up this alcohol. I feel really bad." And he comes back about 10 minutes later, and he presents me with a soup. I said, "Oh, this is interesting. What is this?" He said, "This is a delicacy of our country. This is sheep's eye soup. It's delicious, sir. You will love it." I mean, really, I had to use every fiber of my strength to not vomit all over the place at that point in time. So I said, "Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Could I have some bread with it, please?" They said, "We don't have bread with this soup." I said, "Okay, I know, but I'd really quite like some bread if that's possible." I said, "Okay, fine." So they brought some bread over, and I kind of ate the bread, and then there was a big bamboo bush, and I just, when nobody was looking, I grabbed the whole of this bowl of soup and just chucked it into the bamboo, hoping that nobody would see the sheep eyes, which were literally sheep eyes bobbing around in the soup, were now attached to the bamboo stalks.
Oh
I have
God.
never felt so bad in my life. And anyway,
Jeez.
I then do this concert. Instead of performing for 20 minutes, which was the idea in the end, I performed about 6 minutes on stage, and then he essentially just clicked his fingers and he went, "Yeah, I've had enough of that. Let's put the DJ on." So fine, whatever you want. And then I flew home the next day. I was so ill, I had alcohol poisoning, and ended up in hospital to try and get myself sorted through absolutely no fault of my own. And I had to go into a music studio. It was Angels Studios those days, to go and record a session. And I was so unbelievably ill recording this session, and I never remembered it, never forgot it in my entire life. And I said, "Look, I would never do that again." And then blow me down, 3 years later, I get a phone call, which is the same phone call, the same woman, the same deal. We're gonna ship you off to somewhere, we don't know where, but will you do it? And I doubled the money that I asked for the first time, thinking that they would say no, and they said yes. And I had to go and do the same gig again. And I thought, do you know what, this time I'm just going to hide. I'm going to appear in the compound. I'm going to hide so nobody can get me drunk. Nobody can give me sheep's eye soup. and I'm just gonna hide, and by some miracle it worked, and I earned a lot of money from it. It was a great gig, and I didn't have to have alcohol poisoning. One of the most surreal things that have ever happened to me in my entire life. And I should just say, on the way back, they didn't put me on a private jet. They put me on their national airline. But this Mercedes, this armored Mercedes, drove up to a plane. I got on and I was seat like 1A. And I was looking around and there was no seat 1A. I said, this is very, very strange. And I went to the air stewardess and I said, look, I'm looking for my seat 1A. I can't find a 1A. Is this information wrong? And she looked at me and she said, you are going to Canaria, aren't you? I said, no, I'm going to London. She went, you're on the wrong plane, sir. I said, how can that be possible? How can I be on the wrong plane? She went, I don't know. You need to exit this plane. This is not the plane for you. So I walked down the steps, and this Mercedes then drove me on the tarmac around to all these different planes where I had to just go up the steps and just sneak into this plane and say, excuse me, are you on the way to London? And they would say, no, we're going to Turkey. So, oh, fine, come down the steps. Eventually, I found my plane. I thought, oh, my word, this is just the most bizarre story of my life. And there we go. That is like, that's a summary of my life. And these things happen to me. And, hey, it means that I'm never bored, so I can't complain.
Yeah. I mean, that story in the stand is absolutely bonkers. I mean, looking back on it now, like, what do you, were there any lessons learned particularly? Do you learn anything about yourself or,
Yeah, vodka doesn't agree with me.
Yeah.
Is the main lesson I learned. The other lesson I learned is if you are in one of these countries and you ask for food, make it clear you'd like pizza rather than sheep's eye soup. But honestly, I just... Would I do it again? Well, yeah, I clearly did. If the money is right. That's the thing. I guess you look at these people who go on these celebrity shows, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, or the big one here in the UK is Celebrity Traitors. Why do they do it? Well, they do it for exposure, of course, for their brand, but fundamentally they do it for money, and sometimes we have to do odd things for money in this industry. So yeah, did I learn anything about myself? I guess just I would do stuff for money that I didn't think I would ever have to do.
Hey, you also learned that, I guess, I mean, could you say you can perform when you're drunk? I guess it probably proves your point, actually, that you're not a very good performer when you're drunk.
Yeah, I think I got away with it, but I will never know to this day the reason why he cut it down to 6 minutes instead of 20 is if I was terrible or if he had just kind of got bored. I don't know. I'm not sure I care so much. I mean, he's the one who made me drunk. I didn't want to get drunk. I tend not to drink, really. So,
wow.
Yeah,
crazy.
Just a very strange situation.
So, obviously on the bigger scale of your career, we talked about, that crazy story in the stands and stuff, but you do a lot of performances live with audiences and you probably get a feeling from them, and what I'd really love to know is music definitely has a power. I think we all can appreciate that. And what have you learned about the power of music throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, music can be such a cathartic tool to use, and I never forget. I was supposed to be going to Japan, and it was the year of the natural disaster of the tsunami that hit Fukushima, and then that power plant blew up, the nuclear power plant, and absolute catastrophe, and so many people lost their lives, and so many people lost their houses and their security and their safety and where they live. And I was supposed to go out I think it was the day after the tsunami hit, and obviously the flights were cancelled, the concert was cancelled. It was absolutely unsafe at that point to go, and pointless because we didn't know if the concert hall had survived.
Wow.
But we were just keeping in the loop with the promoters, and about 10 days later, the promoter said, okay, we would still like you to come out if you were happy to do so. And we had conversations, and we decided it would be a clever thing to go out. Still a little bit dangerous with aftershocks and things, but we decided it was not too dangerous and it was worth it. And we wanted to go and perform to try and help people in a strange way, to try and give them some sort of enjoyment for what is fundamentally a horrendous time that they were going through. And music, as I said, can be so cathartic. At the end of the performance, which was sold out, we decided to do a piece of music, which we said would we would do it in honor of your family and friends and your loved ones that you've lost in the past 2 weeks through your utter disaster, and our thoughts and prayers are with you, and we honor them by performing this piece of music. And I will never forget it now to the day I die, because I started conducting and there was a commotion behind me, and I realized that the whole audience had stood up and were now in tears, like properly in tears. This is not a silent tear coming down their cheek. There were people who were wailing, and it has obviously struck a nerve with them, and people couldn't control their emotions. And there were 2,000 people in the audience, of which they were all crying, of which several hundred of them, as I said, were utterly distraught. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do as a conductor, is to carry on conducting, try and keep my composure, try and ignore that noise that was coming from the audience, and do my job. Because I knew if I looked around too much, if I took notice too much of how they were reacting, I wouldn't be able to cope, and I would break down myself. And then if that happened, I couldn't carry on conducting, and the whole thing would fall apart. So it was one of the things that made me realize music, of course, it's entertainment, as I keep on saying, but it can be used in so many different ways to help us humans live through the troubles that we have to all live through at times. Music can do these things. Music fundamentally highlights emotions. I don't know if you've ever been sad in terms of like really properly sad, not like sad because I don't know, it's a miserable day outside. I mean, like really, really properly sad. And if you listen to a piece of music which is emotive, it can make you feel so much worse, actually, or it can make you feel so much better. Yeah. And the same with if you are on a high energy day and you feel like you could conquer the world, and you listen to some brilliant music, and it can send you soaring into the stars, and it can give you so much energy and so much passion and vivaciousness for life. So music has the ability to do all of these things and more. And we just have to respect that as professional musicians, that we can change people's emotions through what we're doing. And it's just very important for us to know that.
I mean, this is, as a documentary filmmaker and a science filmmaker, and this might be a more of an anthropological question, but have you ever considered or thought about the fact that, you know, this is just a mixture of sounds and, you know, noises and how does this particular concoction of noises affect our brain in such a way to literally play our emotions like a freaking guitar or whatever? It's such a bizarre thing, isn't it?
It is a bizarre thing. And what's even more bizarre is I mentioned earlier on that I've got into writing and producing meditation music. So there are certain frequencies that we can insert into our music that can really have a fundamental change in us. So, for instance, there's a frequency which is 528 hertz. We can insert that into our meditation music, and that sort of solfeggio healing frequency has the power to do different things. It can help things like repair DNA. There are other frequencies that can give. There's 174 hertz that we use occasionally. 174 hertz has been proven to relieve tension and pain. It relaxes the muscles. It slows down breathing. So you listen to that frequency, and a lot of people who've got bad back pain can be relieved by that hertz. So we use this to the maximum we can in the orchestral music, orchestral meditation music which we create, and then on top of it we write melodies and write tunes and chord sequences which affect the human emotion. And how does it do that? Why does it do that? I have absolutely no idea. And there's part of me that doesn't want to know the magic and the science behind it, because I want it to stay magical for me.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm the opposite. I'm like, I need to figure out what's going on. Like, how is that like translate? Your brain is, again, I go back to like, Neanderthal times when there was no music, but at some point someone probably two sticks on a rock, and it's just gone from there. It is absolutely fascinating. And I say, people have made careers out of music, and music is now such a fundamental part of our civilization. You cannot imagine humanity without music. It's sort of, incomprehensible. But, I mean, for someone who does want to join you and your fellow musicians and colleagues, I mean, what advice would you have for them, for anyone that wants to follow in your footsteps and either to be a conductor or musician in general?
Don't. That's my first bit of advice.
Simple, short and sweet. Okay, yeah, great.
But I say don't. Only do it if you have the biggest burning desire in your life, in your world to do it. You have to do it. You have no choice. It is not an option for you. Then of course it's a path that you should walk down. But unless that is the case, don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. Oh, it's a quick way of making money. It's not. It's an easy way of making money. It's definitely not. It's a safe way of making money. It's absolutely 100% not. The only reason why you should ever become a professional musician is if you feel like you have no choice in the world but to do this. And it's the reason why you're put on this earth. That's how I felt. And it was not a choice. Now, if that is the case, then you will do everything within your power to make it happen. You will move heaven and earth to build up the contacts. And unfortunately, this business is, I would say, 60% talent, 40% luck. It's as strong as that. And if you don't have the talent, then your luck is not going to be there. But you can have absolutely the biggest talent in the world, and you will have all the bad luck in the world, and you will not make it as a professional musician. So there are ways to manipulate the luck by trying to get to know relevant people, and trying to understand the business a little bit more, trying to figure out how to communicate to the relevant people that you are good at what you do. And that's the same essentially with any other self-employed job in life where, I don't know, you are an artist, a painter, and you're trying to get commissions. It's the same concept. But if you are not a professional musician, or you don't want to be a professional musician, but you just want to make music, that's great. I think that's a fantastic thing. If it's purely a hobby and you're not relying upon it to put a roof over your head and bread on the table, perfect. Absolutely brilliant. Then the world is your oyster. You have choirs in every city, in every village around this world. There are orchestras in all the places. There are people crying out to make bands because there's a bass guitarist who doesn't have a drummer, or there's a drummer who needs a lead singer. you just have to be confident, go out there, use the internet, search for these people who want to make music and go and join them. It doesn't matter how good or bad you are or indifferent. You will just enjoy it as long as you find people who are relative to your level. And it's as simple as that. If you want to make music, go make music. Go and meet other people who are in the same boat as you, because there are millions of people around the world who are in that same boat. And if that is your aim, I wish you all the luck in the world, and it's absolutely possible to have fun doing that.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Robert, it's been so much fun chatting about your amazing stories, your amazing career. I mean, where can people find what you're up to, plug what you're up to?
They can go on to robertemery.com to see information about me as a musician. The big thing that I'm really getting into, and the more I do this, the more I realize it really can affect people, is the meditation music, and that's orchestral meditations with an S in the end, orchestralmeditations.com. And I'm getting more and more into this. I'm enjoying it more and more. I'm realizing that there is more awareness in this world for mental health, wellness, and I think just taking a few minutes, people get scared by the word meditation. Because they think it's some sort of woo-woo strange thing. Fundamentally, it's sitting there either in silence or with some relaxing music and just letting your mind do what your mind needs to do. Nothing more, nothing less. And so you don't need to be scared of it. And I've written this music with Moritz Schneider, this Swiss composer, to generally help people just have a bit of calmness in their life. When we have bonkers governments and we have bonkers things happening with the economy or the interest rate or your mortgage or global warming, all these scary, crazy things that are happening in the world. And I want to give you an opportunity to turn all of that off for anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes and just to have some peace and calm and just to listen to a bit of music that takes you off into another world of relaxation. Then that's what Orchestral Meditations is all about. So if you're interested in trying to get a little bit of wellness in your life for your brain, go on to orchestralmeditations.com.
I mean, it's exactly what we need right now. You know, an antidote to all the craziness out there. So I'm definitely going to check out that after we jump off here. So
brilliant. Thank you.
Amazing. Robert, thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely lovely speaking with you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Chris, and good luck with the podcast. Keep it going.
Thank you so much. All right.
My pleasure.
Speak to you soon.
All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And that is a wrap on this week's episode. A huge thanks again to Robert for sharing his bonkers and inspiring stories with us. If you'd like to learn more about Robert's work or dive into his orchestral meditation projects, you'll find all of the links on the show notes or on our website, noordinarymonday.com. And as always, you can find extra clips and visuals from this episode across our socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and of course our No Ordinary Monday podcast community on Facebook, where you can join the conversation, ask questions, and share your thoughts about the show. All right, so next week we are stepping into the mind of a man who spends his life exploring the darker corners of the human mind and human history. My guest is Dr. Chad Scott, a criminal psychologist, therapist, and dark tourist who has spent years interviewing high-risk offenders, counseling people through extreme trauma, and traveling to some of the most unsettling places on Earth. Not for the thrill of it, but for something surprising: healing. Chad shares the very personal story of how he discovered this phenomena as he was battling a life-threatening disease himself. It's a strangely uplifting tale, and unlike any story we've told on the show so far. So hit subscribe now so you don't miss out on that episode. And that is it for this week. If you enjoyed today's episode, consider leaving a 5-star rating review. Maybe tell a family member or friend. It actually helps more than you think it does. With your support, we can keep growing the show, attract more extraordinary guests for you guys, and we can inspire new listeners each and every week. This show is independently produced, hosted, and edited by me, Chris Barron. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great Monday, everyone, and we will see you next week.